So I'm Hine Marchand and I'm the social worker, community ministries from Salvation Army. So I'm centred in Gorge Road down at the family store. I've been here probably 36 years now. I came as a musician here, so I've seen a lot of changes within the town. And I've done music all my life until 2 years ago, and then 3 or 4 years ago, and then started with social work, which I've been doing, but then I got qualified to do it. Okay.
I'm Nicky Mason. I work at Happiness House Community Centre in Park Street in Queenstown, and I've had that role for nearly 3 years. I've also been here for not 30 odd years, but 20 odd years, and seen a lot of changes in the area. What we're experiencing at the moment, just to give you, which is why we've been asked to talk, is just the high level of rent and low income, and sort of manifests in long-term renters having to leave the area, which I feel is really sad, because they're the ones that contribute to the community. They volunteer, their kids go to school, and just to see them having to leave and the anxiety placed on them of thinking about leaving the district is really sad.
Yeah, just adding to that with what Nicky just said, it seems that the cost of living that I've seen go up. I was thinking at the back when we first bought our house, so we bought a house nearly probably 28 years ago for $97,000. That house now is going for $700,000. So you can see the change that's happened, and I'm working with people. Nicky and I both work with the agencies here. I must say are very collaborative in how we work together. I think it's wonderful. I've heard that we have an incredible working team with what we do, because I don't believe that I can do it all. I need everybody's help to help with food, to help with life skills. For me, I feel the cost of living here, we shouldn't be able to say to people, listen, you can't live here, but it actually is coming down to that families, and we've helped a lot relocate, they can't afford to stay here. Even with a couple working, can't bring in enough money to be able to pay a basic living costs. And when you have, like last week I had a mum whose son hurt his foot at the high school, so she had to go and get a x-ray up at the medical centre, so that threw the whole budget out for food to put on the table. So therefore then we have to come in, and we've got a bit of a policy too, it's normally 2 or 3 food parcels, but then we're looking not at a hand out but a hand up. So if there's any life skills that we need to come in on, I also do Positive Life program down there with a 10-week life skill module, because sometimes it's that's needing budgeting, social skills or whatever, then we help with that to be able to get them up and running as well. Do you want to add to?
Yeah, we're involved in strengthening families, and the number one priority with strengthening families is housing and financial assistance, really, or hardship. And people are living just week to week, so the actually thought of leaving town is impossible, because they have not got the funds to even leave. And that manifests into a lot of relationship breakdowns, and the children take that as well, that burden of financial hardship. So it just sort of starts off as a little thing, but it actually gets into a big problem. At Happiness House we provide not food parcels, but produce on a Friday. So anybody that asks for produce can have some. And our philosophy behind that is that if we can give $50 worth of produce out on a Friday, that is $50 that can then go on their power or their phone bill or towards their rent, because once all their bills are paid, food is the last thing to get attended to. So it's an increasing problem, and we noticed it probably 20% worse now than it was when I started. So we used to see 1,000 people, 800 people come through the door when I first started, It's now over 1,000, and that's not just for assistance, it's a broad range of things, but definitely assistance is in the forefront of that. Yeah. So a lot of immigrants, I believe, are brought in with work on a visa. So they've already got their work. When they're arriving here, they've got nowhere to live. And that puts stress on their families or their individuals. They're moving into houses with a lot of people. If a family comes over, they then have to rent out rooms. And there's also a little bit of risk involved with that if you've got children. So that's just the trend though. But we do see it's a good mix of immigrants and New Zealanders.
I deal with a lot of immigrants and I help with advocacy. So what I personally see is a lot of people who've come here to work are quite scared to report that they're not getting treated properly within their workplace. So then I might go and be advocacy for them. They don't want to say anything because they're on sponsorship. They can't, they're overworked, they're underpaid. We've got a company that's got 600 odd workers due to come into town. This is a quiet period for me right now, but I'm bracing myself because these 600 people, they've got nowhere to stay. There's no housing here. The sad thing is that Queenstown is perceived to be the ritzy in money place, but underneath that veneer, it's not like that at all. And as I say, I've been here for a long time, and it's changed drastically. But there's a lot of families struggling.
A lot of families.
A lot of people actually. We have a few that are homeless, and the most that I can do is give them a tent in the summer weather, or they'd have to go into backpackers. But then if there's mental issues in that, then I don't have anywhere to put them because they won't take them. I think I'm down to about 2 places that will take people for emergency accommodation because we don't have it here.
I mean, one thing that would be great is if, hotels, maybe the skiing industry, anybody, they could supply that worker accommodation. I think that's would relieve a lot of pressure. Just for the, for the start anyway, it would be of help, as it's really bad at the moment until other housing gets established.
And I might just add that the cost of living's got higher, but the funding has got less and less for not so much for me, Salvation Army. We sort of don't get government funded at all. I don't think so. But for the other agencies, they do. So their fundings have all been cut, but the work has increased and got more complicated.
So we get a minimal amount from the government, actually a very small portion for strengthening families, which is about $3,000 a year. The rest of our funding we have to actively go out and get ourselves through funding agencies, and we do a lot of stuff ourselves. So, that's also takes time, and then you can't spend with what you're supposed to be doing the money with. So it's kind of a catch-22. A lot of people are, immigrate, coming into town with being sponsored, knowing they've got work, but also hoping to come in and join a really caring, loving community. And when you're all fighting for the one room or the one house, or the one job, it does create sort of a lot of ill will, I guess. I don't see a heap of it, but I definitely know it's there.
I'll be about the same. For me, that's one of the big problems is that I heard one of my previous officers that were in our thing, he said to me one day, he said, the poverty is not food, it's isolation and loneliness. And I think that it is too, because I think that when you have community, at least you can get through. I think that Queenstown's a very cliquey place. If you don't, but it's hard to get into and belong. So for the people that I deal with, that'd be a lot of them come into town on their own, or a lot of them just come in as families. I had a family last Christmas who came in with 3 children on Christmas Day. No food, no accommodation, nothing. And I just couldn't, he had to try and make friends with another Brazilian family and try and move in because there was just nothing. this place here on Easter, Christmas, and that there is no way, no room at the inn anywhere. So I think it's a big thing.
Having family and not having extended family support, I think is, you notice that with young mums. We support quite a lot because they've had their working life here, they've had their children, then suddenly they're completely isolated, and it's tough. Definitely the wages don't help the high cost of living, so that's where it has to be balanced out in some way. Either the wages go up and the rent goes down, or I don't know how you manage it, but definitely that's a big problem.
I don't know how or who controls the pricing of accommodation, but when I first came into town, you would pay a bond, a letting fee, probably a few weeks' rent for a house, right? Now you pay that per room. So if there's 5 rooms in a house, you have individual letting fees, individual bonds, individual everything. I mean, and we've got people that are paying, that's like $200 to sleep in a room with a bunk. That's not including their accommodation, their power. Once they get hit, and I don't think our houses, maybe they're getting a bit better, but they're not economically built so that we can deal with it's freezing here in winter. And so their power bills are massive. Then they'll take all summer to try and pay that off, and maybe not. And that's hanging over them. So imagine that overwhelming anxiety constantly to not know, am I going to be able to put food on the table? Can I pay if my kids get sick? They just can't do it.
There is one hotel I'm aware of that has just got rid of all their staff accommodation and their staff of probably 10, 20 years to refurbish and to make more rooms. So, that's unfortunate. Yeah, really disappointing. And actually, those people that were working there have had to move on because there's nothing available for them. I think it's really unfortunate because that sector of the community are the volunteers. They're the ones that help out Happiness House and Salvation Army, and if we didn't have that sector, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So it's really important to look after the vulnerable in the town, in any town. They need to be looked after.
Well, I've been asking those questions. That's why I don't know who lays the foundation for the starting price, if you like, for rents. Why can we just do it willy-nilly, or do we have to get accountable?
One thing that I've often thought of is the amount of empty houses around, and there is loads. And I know some models in other countries is that if you're not letting your house out for a period of time, say 9 months of the year, or if no one's living in it, then you're required to pay quite a large rates, which could then go into a housing fund, which could then, be managed. And I've brought this up at a different forum, and was sort of told that there's no way that you could sort of check on that, of who's letting their houses and who's not. But I guess what you could do is that you have to prove that there is someone there. So rather than going around checking, you've got your house, you're paying rates, you prove every year that you've got someone living in it 9 months of the year, you're renting it out. And that would be a pretty quick, short-term, good way of housing quite a few people. You can't, I was living on Frankton Road, I was surrounded by 4 empty houses. It's, they're there, they're just not lived in. So that may be a good topic of conversation for your afternoon session.